Loud. All right. So I'm going to I'll mute myself in a moment. Um this is I'll do this. This is one of the final interviews of the 125th Piermont Library Anniversary Piermont Remembers Project. I'm here with George Flobeck. George, do you give us permission to record your words and your image?
Yes, I do.
Thank you so much. So this is how I've started almost every interview. And you can go in any direction you want, but let's start at the beginning. What is your earliest Piermont memory?
1940, 3 or 4. Probably earlier than that, because I was born in 42, and I guess just being with my parents and my brother, who was 4 years older than me, at my house. But I was quite young then. But then I remember being in a really harsh snowstorm right outside my house. Next thing I remember with my mom. So those are the two main things I think that I remember. I also remember, and I haven't been able to find a picture. Somehow there was on my street, Hudson Terrace, there were looked like to me wagon wheel tracks, and I can't find pictures of that, which is kind of weird. So that's probably the. And then I remember also families getting together for dinner on a Sunday. Seemed like a ritual. My families and I, and we had relatives in Haberstroh and Nyack, and the family was in Piermont, has been in Piermont, was in Piermont for years, over 150 years, I guess. So there were a lot of friends that we had, and it would just be a new person, it seemed like every week. So that's probably, and another early memory was I think I was 3 years old, and I was determined to capture Santa Claus. So we had a back steps, and I was going to hide in the back steps. I was sure he wasn't coming down through a chimney; he was coming through the back steps. And I just sat on the back steps and was going to wait for him to come by me. And little did I think that I'd fall asleep. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, the cops and all the neighbors were looking for me. Where the hell did he go? So that was another kind of a fond memory. I can remember that one.
Where was the house?
On Hudson Terrace, Piermont, in Piermont. Yep, that was another good memory. And I remember shoveling snow with my mom. I don't know, she liked to shovel snow, and I was kind of a pain. I didn't really want to shovel. I wanted to play with it, but play in it. But we'd go out and shovel snow. A lot of snow in those days, back in the 40s. Yeah, a lot of snow. So that's primary. First comes to my mind anyway. Fond memories anyway in Piermont. Then I do remember also my father taking me on the train to New York to work with him. My mother and father both worked in New York City, and they both took the train in. So on occasion they would take me in. I was fidgety though, so they didn't often take me. But I remember going on the train and talking to the station people up at the train station, and then going down to the city, talking to other people on the train. It's kind of a fond memory. Um, that was, I would say, ages 6 and below, maybe 7 and below, 6 or 7 below and below. Um, then my my we talked to Belle Kelly. I remember talking to her. I don't know how, but she was a nice person. Came behind that. She seemed to like kids, and even though I was fidgety, and she would maybe try to calm us down. She'd come behind the station and give us a cookie or so, and it was something I enjoyed um, doing that. And then in my later years, we kind of the two things were part of our youth. I think the river, Hudson River, and the trains and the woods and the pier. That was kind of just memories of doing things. On the trains, as I got older and not wiser, but maybe a little daring, we would jump on the train when they stopped at Paramount, and after they started to take off, we jump on it and try and hitch a ride to Spark Hill. We get to Spark Hill and we walk home, uh, and uh, and do it again the next day or something. And I think that conductors knew what we were doing, but they weren't gonna mess with us. We weren't being mischievous. We weren't being damaging. We just were a little mischievous. We'd sit at the end of the train or at the end where the car was. So that was all good fun. And then as a youngster in the 50s, you were cowboy fans, not cowboy like the professional teams, but cowboys watching I guess yeah, uh, all of the guys, what's his name there?
Gene Autry,
Gene Autry and
Bird Lodge.
yeah, and we would, and the fields up in Paramount they reminded us of the fields that you see in the shows, whether it was Will Rogers or whoever it was, and we go up to the fields and we had BB guns at the time, and we just put targets up and shoot at them, and we practice and then we come down again, and we just, I guess, how we played in those days. As I grew older, we actually did some hunting up in the fields up there for squirrels, rabbits, and my neighbors, my good friend, best friend's mother would cook them all the time. And then we'd go out on a pier and cook ducks. I mean, we'd shoot ducks on a pier. And this was again in the 50s. We'd come home and we'd have a shotgun on one shoulder and 3 or 4 ducks on the other shoulder. And whether it was the police or it was the people in town, they said, "How much you get today? What'd you do? How'd you do?" You tried walking through Paramount today with a gun on your shoulder, you'd probably never get out of jail. So that's something we did. Um, the my my grandfather, great grandfather George Taylor, he built a house that we lived in on 230 Hudson Terrace. He built it in, I think it was around 1960s. I mean 1860s. I'm sorry, because I say that because he wrote a letter to the Erie Railroad, the chairman of the board, and I had the letter at home, and he gave them a lot of good acclaim for doing a good job with the railroad, and that was in 1971. The letter was written. 1871, yeah, 1871. Correct myself. So I that was he was and at the time when I went down when I would go into New York by train, to be with them for a day, my mother and my mom and dad. Um, I recall asking my father why there were no toilets, why there were only holes in the toilets. There was no nothing to capture all the material. It was just shoom right down into the tracks. Um, that was a kind of something I recall. Let me think of what else. Next thing. Um, my my um, yeah, that we had. It was interesting too, Bill. As much as the trains, people complained about the trains and the noise, but we loved the noise. It helped you sleep. But we also had we also had hobos coming to our house, and I can distinctly remember they coming in the back door and knock on the door, and all they wanted was something to eat, and they would tell us stories about where they were. They just came from Chicago, wherever it was, and they would tell us stories, and it was just an exciting time. I would call my friends over, and while the hobos were eating, they would tell us stories about where they were, and we thought we wanted to be hobos then because they seemed to have exciting lives. But it was fun. Um, yeah, we hunted on the tracks, and we also hunted up actually in the mountains also. Then, up and further up, we hunted deer. So that was part of that. I went to interesting. I went to TC High School. Was still in Paramount at the time. In fact, I have the graduation certificate that was when it was built in 1898. When all the people were there. That it wasn't a graduation certificate. It was the building certificate when it was first opened, and it has all the names of people that attended the high school. My mom, she grew up in Paramount, and she graduated from Tappan Zee High School in 1923. She was born in 1905, I think it was, and she graduated in 1923. But what's really interesting, she was on the Tappan Zee High School, Tappan Zee women's basketball team. At those days, you were supposed to only play with dolls. You weren't supposed to play with a basketball. So it was kind of amazing just to see that they had a team going back that far. And I have rings at home and bracelets that say she was a guard. So the other thing that was amazing to me, I went to high school in the 50s, my brother in the 50s, and my great granddaughter graduated from the high school. My daughter's graduated from the high school. My great granddaughter graduated in 2018. And she said to me, Pop, your family has over 100 years of people at TZ High School, including the one in Orangeburg and the original high school. So I never realized that myself. What's interesting though, when we were in high school in the 50s, we won almost, I would say, in every sport. And I had 47 kids in my graduating class in high school. Um, my 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 full school, I think, was 160 kids. But we were competing with schools like Clarkstown, like Haverstraw, like Suffern, like Spring Valley, and everyone else with maybe 1,000 kids. And we won. I would say we won championships. We won in a lot of sports. Some kids would play football, then they'd go be in a wrestling match. Other people would play baseball, then they'd go play golf. So kids were two or three sports. We had kids from the Coriano kids. There was a convent over by us in Spark Hill. It was called, I don't remember what it was called back then, but we called it the House of Kids. And they came to school in the middle of their junior year, actually at the end of their sophomore year. The school closed, the convent over in in Spark Hill. So the kids, they just told the kids, you're on your own. So these are kids that are 15, 16, 12, and a lot of people in Paramount took them in, and not as family, but they came here. They would stay at my house, and the Coriano brothers, which I'm still very friendly with, there was 5 of them, and they would come to my house and stay and fill up on food. My father would make sure they had something to eat because they were good football players, and this happened. Other families in Paramount would take them in. I would say, if you count the people, including Anna Hickey, ask Anna Hickey, yeah, and the people that took them in, and it was they always I think they wanted to go to different people's homes because they love to be with us. So I just went to a reunion to one of my for Guido for not Guido Coriano but Kevin Coriano last year, and we still have those. But that was some fond memories as we got older, and some of the football memories were quite amazing. There was a coach called Coach Matola, Nick Matola, and if you had to say there was someone like him, he was like a Lombardi type guy. There was no BS. He just wanted you to do things right. And one game, there was there was 2 stars there. One was Richie Pearson, the other one was Howie Pearson. Howie Pearson, I was trying to get to be on one person that you should interview, but we never hooked up together. He said anytime, but he's a good guy. And he was so good. He played for the Pittsburgh Pirates and in baseball, and he also played, I think, football for it might have been New Orleans for a while, but he was tremendous. But the reason why I mentioned that whole crew is because he was the quarterback at our team, and his brother Richie was the receiver. And he came in after catching a ball and scoring a touchdown. He came in with his finger up saying, "Hey, coach, I think I have a problem." And his bone was pushed back. It was coming out of his hand. When he caught the ball, it was through by his brother so hard. So the coach, Nick Matola, says, "Hey, where's the tape? Give me the tape. Give me the tape." So guy came running over with the tape. He taped it on him, taped his hand up. He said, "Okay, Richie, you ready to go? Get back out there." That was it. My experience with Coach Matola was I only played football. I got asthma bad when I was in 8th grade, but I played in junior high, junior and in 6th and 7th grade. We were playing kids in Rutherford, East Rutherford, and I was playing halfback. In those days, you played both. You played both ways, defense and offense. I played halfback and I played halfback and linebacker. That's what I played. And the ball was thrown to one of my teammates, and I was supposed to block for him, and I missed the block. The guy faked me out, and I missed the block. So naturally, you're feeling bad because you messed up. I came over to the side of the field, took my helmet off, and I was just looking down. I didn't know what to say to him. He came over, he picked me up by the ears, right off the ground, and said, "Flobeck, you think you can make that next block?" I said, "Absolutely, coach. Never miss another one. Never did for the rest of my 2-year career." And they weren't mean to hurt us. They just were trying to give you a message. You need to concentrate on things. So that was he was a great coach. He went on to win so many championships for TZ. He went on to suffer and win so many championships there. And you got to respect him. I mean, really. Another guy in there. Yeah, TC Bridge is another good story. This was when they built the TC Bridge in 55. We were still in the old high school here in Paramount. I was the last graduating class to graduate from TZ Paramount, and my wife was the first. My wife's class was the first class to graduate from Orangeburg. But either case, we went, and those guys, we went up to the principal, Barone, Mr. Barone, and we asked him if we could have the time off to go and see the opening of the Tappan Zee Bridge. He said, absolutely not. You kids are here to get educated. You need to learn and everything else. So we said, oh, okay, all right, you sure? But it's a one-time thing. And he said, no, you have to go. So the next thing he knew, he watched us. There's about 22 of us. We jumped over the fence and we're on our way, running up River Road. And so he called his two teachers that were sports, they were runners. And he said, go catch those guys and bring them back here. They caught us, but they let us go. They said, hey, we're going to tell the principal that we couldn't catch you. You guys were too fast. So he let us go. He let us go, and we celebrated the whole opening of the bridge. And then the next day, Mr. Barone called us into his office. He said, I really should penalize you guys, but I understand what you did was a once in a lifetime thing. So I'm not going to penalize you. That was it. So I had another experience, just two more experiences about school, which one was a principal in Spark Hill, and I probably shouldn't say this, but the guy, we crossed the road or did something damaging to the building. I don't remember what we did as kids, but the principal called us in and he whacked us with a rubber hose. That was, but we expected something, and it didn't hurt us. It was just trying to teach us. So that was it. Another person in TZ, Bill Moran, who became athletic coach director after a while. He taught in New York, and he taught in the schools that were really rough kids. So he was a big guy, and he was a great teacher. He had us in seventh grade taking eighth and ninth grade Regents tests just to prepare us. But I always remember this. And he came in, and I think it was the second week of school. One guy didn't do his homework, and he was up there, trying to complete some of the questions that Mr. Moran asked him, and he couldn't do it. So Mr. Moran went over to him, picked him up by the collar, put him up against the wall, and 3 times he hit his head very lightly against the backboard. He said, Ralph, do you think you can get your homework done from now on? He never missed another day of getting his homework done. He didn't get hurt. Maybe he was embarrassed a little bit, but so I don't think when teachers in the old days were rough, they were just trying to keep us straight. Another person was our janitor was Joe Herban. We played baseball in a TC school, the old school, and it had a big tree in the middle, huge tree. And we played baseball. We just choose up teams and whatever. And everybody was trying to get a home run. You had to hit a home run over the tree. But if you did that, you were going to break a window in a school. So that was guaranteed. So when we broke a window, we would go and buy a piece of glass. We would give Joe Herban, that's all he wanted was 25 cents. He would take 25 cents and go buy the glass and replace the window. So he was just trying to teach us that, you do something, you got to pay for it. So we did. So I think part of my education in the classes in the high school at TZ was very memorable, but very good.
No doors on bathrooms.
And the thing that's amazing was, again, we had our students were really low. We didn't have the big schools like anyone else. And we had, in TZ, was an old school, and we had bathrooms. The boys' bathrooms didn't have doors on the stalls. So I was in there talking to one of my close friends who was smoking. He was sitting on a toilet and he was smoking, And Mr. Barone again came in and said to this person, "How you doing, Clark?" And starts talking to him. Before he could talk to him now, before he saw it, he took the cigarette and threw it in the bowl. Well, don't you know the paper in a bowl would catch on fire? And I saw sweat coming off of Clarky's brow, and he was just, and finally, I said, "Clark, I think it's time you flush the toilet." So he went back and flushed the toilet, and the fire went away. That was just a funny story that happened in old Tappan Zee.
We forgot
The
to
old
show
days.
this.
Oh, yeah. You know, talking about the trains, you can see this. This was the last train to travel. I don't know if you can see that, but it was the last train that in Paramount that traveled from Nyack to Paramount. It was 1965, April 1965. And you can see down below, Tree Row, halts tragic plunge. And exactly, then you can see it on the other side where the tree fell down, but it didn't, it held up, it held the train from going down the hill. My dad was on that train, Clarence Flobeck was right on that train, and that last one of the last trains to travel in Paramount. That's just as an aside, but very important because that might have actually killed the trains in Paramount, really, something like that, because it would needed a lot of repair. The tracks did need some repair at the time. What else do I got? Sports. Oh, you know what was neat about old Paramount, what I call old Paramount? Oh, one thing I wanted to say also, at TZ High School, my brother, who he played, I couldn't play sports because I had asthma. He couldn't play sports because he was in an automobile accident, and he couldn't get, he had a plate in his head and a plate in his right arm. So he couldn't play sports, but he played tennis. And I think he holds a record for one of the longest tennis matches in Rockland County. I think it was a 7-hour match straight. They just kept going, him and this other guy. He actually finally won.
Wow.
It was just amazing. And he finally won. And he went to the regionals and won, but then he got his butt beat, he said, in the finals. But 7-hour match, yeah, I don't think there's ever been another match like that. But you know, it's kind of, we didn't have a lot of kids, but we just had heart in Paramount. There was heart. We would listen to the coaches and do what they said, and they would coach us right, and we won a lot of championships. So one thing I think I remember vividly from old Paramount was down in they had a what was called a clam bake right in Fort Comfort, which is not far from it's where the Spartan, it's where the
Right now.
it's where we are now right now. Yeah, we're not in Fort Comfort in the actual facility though, but and it was all the Italians came here, and it was their day to bring the food in, and it was a full thing, and not all of them could speak English, but we would ask them, "How'd you end up in Paramount?" And they said, "Well, we looked and looked and looked, and it's just like Italy because of the water and the mountains."
Hmm.
That's how they really, migrated here. Another story from a guy from the Barati family was big in that. They always were, and the guy that just died too.
Holmes.
Huh?
Holmes.
No, it was Gaddy family also. The Gaddy family had a huge tomato garden in back of the fence on the old school. We would play baseball there, and the grandfather would come up, and they had a garden of tomatoes. It had to be 75 by 50 feet. And he would come up, and we thought he was going to yell at us for stealing tomatoes, but because we grab a tomato once in a while. He'd come up and he gave us a lecture about how us boys need water when we're playing sports. and we should come and get his tomatoes and eat them. Yeah, yeah, because there's a lot of water in them. It was just that was the town, you know. They would help each other. It was just the town of Paramount. You'd help each other, and nobody really hassled. You'd fight once in a while, but next day you'd be friends. So in the Italian, and that was how the clam bakes. And I don't know why they stopped them. That was something I really, really enjoyed. And the other thing was great about Paramount, and still is the river. When I was growing up, the kids were there was big boat races on the Hudson. There was an Albany to New York boat race, which they held every year. I think it was sponsored by New York City. They were trying to get more people to go from Albany to New York, and so, but they had Albany to New York boat races, and then they also had a national boat racing group across the country got together, and they would hold races in Paramount and in New Jersey, all over the place across the country. And one of the guys from Paramount, which was named Bill Holmes, he won the national championship, which was national, and this was national sport. And the trophy was six feet tall, but everybody helped Bill, and it was Popovich and other people, but they weren't as good as Bill. He was daredevil. He would just waves or whatever. It didn't matter. They called him the flipper because he was always flipping his boat over. But he won the national championship because he had two boats, two type boats, wooden boats, and they had two motors, and he would just be out there the whole day, and he would go from here to even out to Oakland to run across the country now. And he won the national championship the whole year. But that really accelerated boats in the Hudson here. I became a dock boy for Fort Comfort, which was Spartone's down here, and because we had 500 boats out there. Boats were just a popular thing in the 50s, and they were characters in Fort Comfort. One was there's about 500 boats we had here, and I was a dock boy there, and I was paid 40 cents an hour, 40 cents an hour by Spartone, but then I got a lot of tips. And one of the guys that was a very good tipper was Mike Wallace. At the time, Spartone's here in Paramount had fresh lobster shipped down to their place every day from Maine. Every day, fresh lobster. So everybody said, "Wow, we'll go there." And Mike Wallace became a very frequent person here. So he'd come in here and he had a slick-looking wood-long mahogany boat. And first thing he said to me, "Hey, kid, can you watch my boat for me?" I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Wallace." He said, "I'll take care of you." So when he came out, he gave me 25 bucks. He's a kid making 40 cents an hour, and he gave me 25 bucks. And I thought I was going to heaven. It was great. I mean, every time he came here, he said, "Kid, you got my boat again?" I said, "Absolutely, Mr. Wallace." So it was fun. Other people would give me some money too, from 50 cents or when I was a dock boy, and just drive them out to their boat. Frank Spartone once, he was my boss, and I was driving a truck. I was only 13 years old at the time, 14 years old, 13 or 14. And I was driving their truck around the boatyard, and he said to me, "Hey, George, you got to go up and pick up something up at Avon and Suffer." I said, "Mr. Spartone, Frank, I don't have a license. I'm only 13. He said, "Don't worry about it. I know everybody in Rockland County. You just tell them to give me a call." Off I went up there and came back, and that's the way it was in those days. You just knew everybody, and if you had a problem, it was Paramount. So I had a couple of issues though that I had in as a dock boy. Good experiences, but a dock boy. I once we were out there, and there was a storm, and we were just sitting. It was a small dock building out there where we kept the soda machines and everything else. And I was leaning against the gas machine, and boom, lightning struck. It blew me back about 25 feet off where I was. And the next, within an hour, Frank Spadone called me up and he said, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I don't know what the heck happened here." And so he said, "I don't see any electricity out there." So I said, "I don't know." So he came out. He said, "All the wires are burnt off the gas pump. So you must have been hit good." I said, "Yeah, I was leaning against it, and it just boom, blasted me out." So he said, "Okay, we'll have to take care of that. You okay though?" I said, "Yeah." So I just stayed there. Um, Another story was a frightening story, but again, being a dock boy, I had another friend of mine was here with me, and it was a hurricane. I don't know, remember the name of the hurricane? But there's a lot of them in the 50s. But we were sitting and in the shack there, and we go out once in a while look, and we looked outside across the river, and we saw a light flashing off of a boat, and it looked like it was heading towards the rocks, what we call the perch rocks, down by the Paramount Pier. So I looked further with binoculars, and I saw a guy there with his wife, I guess, and they were waving a red flag, and the three kids were there too, and it looked like they had no power at all. Something happened to the boat. So I said to a friend of mine that was there with me, I said, Bobby McKernan, I said, "Bobby, you think we should take a chance and go out there?" He said, "What are you going to do? We got to help them. They're heading for the rocks." So we had an old gray, it was an old workboat, and it had a 125 horse gray Marine, which we couldn't start because there's so much water in the boat. It wouldn't even start. So we had to bail it out quickly, and then we got it started. And this boat was a workboat, so it had two huge 4x4s in it, which were used to tow things. So we got out there after going up and down. The boat was 22, 23 foot long, but it was going up and down like it was just a cork. So we got out there and we got the rope from the guy, and we tied it to these two big supports, and we're towing them up the river, trying to get back in here. And those two things get yanked right out of the boat. So what do we do now? So I told the guy, I said, "Look, you have a longer rope in the boat." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Give me a real long rope. I'm going to tie it right around our boat, and we'll pull you in." So we were able to get him in, and this guy kissed the ground when they got on the face here, and he gave us $100. That was pretty.
Wow, that's
$100 bill. Yeah, it was crazy. So that was a little trying time, but it was part of, that's before Paramount had water safety and water support. They didn't have the water team
Water
down
rescue.
there, water rescue team. Yeah, so that was we were the rescue. A couple kids, age 13 years old, not knowing what we were doing. Yeah, I wanted to go back to say one thing, but it's just a little iconic thing that my father told me that I didn't mention before. As I said, I was born in August 11, 1942, which is precisely about 9 months from Pearl Harbor. My father was in World War I.
not World War II.
No, he was in World War I, and he was going to sign up for World War II. That's what he was going to do. But then my father told me this, that my mom tricked him into getting pregnant. So she was pregnant. So he decided not to go into World War II as an army person. He told me that years later. But he said sometimes things work out, whatever.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing because he told me that. You're lucky you're here. I have to write a book. I really believe that I have somehow a charmed life from danger. I think I can write a book, my 29 lives. It
Well,
will
you,
be
you
very-
take this, you take this tape and you transcribe it. You've got the chapters laid out already.
Well, it's 29 lives, you know. And I mean, the same year, my friend from the other from Grandview, Robin Herring, I think it was Lynn Herring, her sister. I was out in my boat and she was out in her boat and she was waving at me and this and that. And she wasn't paying attention where she was driving. And she was heading right for us. Well, I had to give a hard turn to the right to miss her and it flipped my boat over. So that was myself and Bobby McKernan. We were dumped ourselves in the water with the boat on top of us and we swam out from underneath it. And that's great. And believe it or not, we had someone help us tow the boat in. And we then were out. We got the motor running in the boat, and another hour after that, John Hickey helped us. Yeah, so it's just that's what I'm saying. All these 29 lives. Yeah. What else did I miss? I don't know what I'm missing here. Just let me took a couple of things here. Got anything, Lola? I'm just looking. Yeah, the town when I grew up, this is in the 50s. I mean, you know, and you know, gas was 14 cents a gallon or 12 cents a gallon. So I would go down to Kurt's and fill it up and carry it back rather than pay what I was charging people out here for their boats of $1.35 an hour, $1.35 a gallon, I think. But the town had a gas station, had an A&P, had a hardware store, had a drugstore, had Yokel's, which was a candy store, had another candy store from Montezano's, had a soda fountain store, which was a Jewish guy named Harry, and he would tell us, you guys need, because you're in sports, you guys need to have eggs. Bring your own egg next time, and we'll make you a milkshake with eggs for you. Billy Hogan in the diner, he was a boxer. You look him up, and he's in the Rockland County Hall of Fame. He had a diner here. He would give us
Like
5 burgers and a milk for $1 because we played sports. So it was just the Hudson. We did a lot on the Hudson besides just using boats. We did ice skating. We ice skated. We rode cars on the Hudson in the 50s and 60s. Spin around. I made myself a sail and I skated from the pier in Paramount to Hook Mountain with a sail. We played hockey on the Hudson. There were ice boat races on the Hudson also in the early 60s. One of the guys, Bobby, think of his name, Bob Skinner. Bob Skinner had an ice boat. So we play ice hockey out there. It was just, you know, as my mother-in-law said, she grew up in Haverstraw, and she said the Hudson River was her entertainment. They swam, they fished, they did skating, they did boating. It was everything. It's a funny story. She had a brother. There was a brother. My mother-in-law had a brother and 5 and 3 daughters. And so I said to her, who was the best swimmer? And she said, oh, my brother was the best swimmer. He was, all the guys would go down and they were good swimmers. All the guys were good swimmers. I said, well, what are you smirking about? She said, well, they always went BA. I said, they did? Bare ass. And she said, I said, you didn't watch them, did you? She said, oh, yes, we did. It's funny.
Was there lightning?
I said I was struck by lightning before. I mentioned that before. I was struck by lightning leaning against the gas pump. Yeah, it just hit me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it just boom. And it got-
29 lives.
Yeah, 29 lives, you're right. Also, as kids, we were pretty big fishermen. My friend Ray Holmes and I, and Richie Lynch, we had what was called a set line. And in the Fort Comfort, there was a group of came over from Finland. They would come over every year and they would fish for shad and bass in the spring, and they would put their belongings and everything else in Fort Comfort, and we would just help them out when we could, and we learned to fish. I never fished for the big ones, but we fished for catfish, and catfish was, we had three fishing lines, 1,000 feet long, it's 3,000 feet, with tying hooks on every probably 30, every 3 feet, I think it was, hooks, and we bait them up all day, and then we come back out at night, and we take the catfish and we ship them to the market, and we were kids. I mean, what the heck was I then? And I was, before I was out of high school, I had to be in the 55, 56, 57. We were making maybe 4 boxes of catfish a week. That was about, let me see, it was about almost $400 $400 a box for catfish. So, with kids making $1,200 a week, what the heck? That was something
Yeah.
that was part of what we did. Paramount was a good town where you knew, it still is now, but at that time, everybody knew your name. They wouldn't know your first name, but they know you were Flobeck, or they called me Taylor after my grandfather. Hey Taylor, how you doing? We walked past. Oh, doing good. But it was just, everybody knew everybody that was in town here. And the people that didn't know where the town was, which was mostly, they couldn't find the town. But we were all friends, and we were in, my daughters were in bands. I had a marching band. And we marched at and I was like a mascot. We marched at all parades, and we were the band for the firehouse. That's what we were. So it was just I wouldn't, everybody I've ever talked to in Paramount said they wouldn't give up growing up in Paramount for nothing, for anything. They always loved their own place. Yeah, really. And I think some of that's has rubbed off to some extent on some of the newer people too. And they always want me to tell my stories. Tell me, how did this happen? What did you do here? Yeah, I'm about out of things.
What about our
Well, this is wonderful.
Paramount Reformed Church, my great grandfather, which is George Nelson Taylor, was a member of the church in 1800s.
Wow.
And he was on the same committee as I am, the finance committee, and he was a deacon in the church. And then my mother's dad, which was named Morrow, Brainerd Morrow, and he was on the church too. There were four Morrow brothers came over from Northern Ireland in the 1800s. So I thought I was all Swedish, but I'm part Irish. Yeah, Irish from that. And the church, I've been a member of the church. I can remember the church burning down, and that was in 44, I think, or 43. I can remember my mother taking me down there, and just because they were trying to help, and I was just there being a pain, But I've been a member of the church for the family's been in the church for almost 200 years now.
And your treasure.
No, church, yeah. I'm treasurer of the church and deacon, whatever. The only thing I would say else, which is a kicker, by the way, my great grandfather, paid the taxes in 1903. I'll take a guess from anybody.
$100, $75.
Try $6.
$6.
No.
And that was town. And we had
Wow.
a school then, and we had Orange Town, and we had county. $6. So once in a while, I send that in when you pay a tax bill. Say, here's when you get some real value from your village politicians. But yeah, just a joke. But yeah, no, it's $6. It was $6. Yeah, it's crazy, crazy. That's about. I can't think of anything else.
Well, this is wonderful, George. As I said, if something else occurs to you, please. You're around for the week and we can continue, but this
Okay.
is extraordinary. I don't know what I'm gonna excerpt. It's all good.
Okay.
It's really wonderful. So I'm gonna stop the recording for now.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Stay on the line. Stay on.
You're very welcome.